Okay, hey guys, it's Mr. Travis. And what I want to do is help you get ready for this test, the Unit 9 test. This is the study guide, which I've already given you. See if I can see that there, yeah. And it's a lot like the test, almost exactly like the test. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pretend that I'm you, and I'm taking this test, okay? I'm going to show you how I would handle this test, all right? Number one, it says which sum is less than 1? And it has these different problems here, okay? Honestly, this is kind of hard. I mean, you have to work them out and figure them out. So like, you might be able to see if 1 is obviously more than 1, and that would probably be a good place to start. But I mean, honestly, if you're not sure, you probably just need to work them out. So like, for example, A, and this is problem number 1, A says 7/12 plus 5/8. Okay. I've got time, right? I'm taking a test. So why not figure this out? I could do my magic box, or I can do some other method that you guys, some of you have shown me that works for you. I'm going to do my multiples of 8 and 12. I mean, this is something we've been doing a lot. 8, 16, 24. I do my 12, 24. And I find that 24 is my new denominator. Okay, so that goes there as the new denominator. Let me change markers. Not loving that marker. So then remember, these always have to be 1. I'm not going to work every one of these out right now, but on the test, if I were you, I would. 8 times 3 is 24. This has to be 3/3 to make 1 whole, because we're multiplying by some form of 1, and that's kind of the trick that we're doing here. 5 times 3 is 15. 12 times 2 is 24. So that's 2 halves. 7 times 2 is 14, okay? So then I do, my 14 plus 15. I know 15 and 15 is 30. So 14 and 15 must be 29. So I get 29 24ths. Is that less than 1? 1 whole, right? No. If it's anything 24 24ths or above, that's bigger than 1, right? That's 1 or bigger than 1. So it's anything 24 24ths or beyond, I'm going to say, no, that's not right. So the question is asking me which is less than 1. So I would not circle A, right? I'm going to do that same thing for B, for C, and for D. Again, you might know some tricks to know that, oh, I know that's bigger than 1. Like maybe 1/2 plus 3/5. I can kind of tell that that's bigger than 1. But you might not be able to tell that. It depends on where you are with fractions, okay? So if you're not sure, when in doubt, I would do this for every single one of those and find out which is less than 1. Now, it seems like that one is only asking, like there's only one right answer. So if you can find for sure the one that is less than 1, you might be okay to go ahead and circle it. But I mean, I would just take my time and do it. All right, number 2. And actually, number 1 is one of the harder ones, I think, one of the more time-consuming. Number 2, which is equivalent to 1/4 plus 1/5, okay? Now, I already know it's not A or C. There's no way that 9 is going to be the new denominator, right? There's just no way. With 4 and 5, we're going to do those multiples. So it's got to be B or D. It's got to be one of those, okay? And it kind of looks like B to me is going to make more sense, but let's find out. So again, this is number 2, which is equivalent to 1/4 plus 1/5. Okay, so I'm going to write 1/4 plus 1/5 and do my magic box. Or again, however you like to do it is okay if you have a way that you've shown me. I would rather you not just do some random way that we've never talked about. All right, I do my multiples: 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 5, 10. Be sure to use denominators. I had a couple people that have been trying to do the numerators. It has to be the denominators, which again is one reason you might want to do the other method that I showed, the alternate method. Okay, so I see I've got 20. Anything lower? 5, 10, 15. I don't see anything lower. So I'm going to go with 20 as my new denominator. Again, these are 1s. 1 whole pizza or whatever. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5. So I get 5/20 plus 4/20. So that's B. D, I mean, I really didn't think D was going to be it. It can't be A or C because 9 cannot possibly be a common denominator of 4 and 5. So I kind of knew it was B going in, but I like to make sure, so I worked it out, right? This is how I take tests. I don't just think, it's probably B and move on. I want to make sure. If I have a way to make sure, I want to do it, okay? Number 3, Vincente mixes 2/5 liter of orange juice with 3/10 liter of pineapple juice. How much juice does Vincente? So this is one of those where I got to figure out, like, how much am I going to add or subtract, right? I got to know, am I going to add or subtract? So how much usually means add. But again, I can draw, I can draw, like, let's see, if I've got 2/5 of a liter of orange juice, and I mix it with 3/10 of a liter. It doesn't matter if I make these too big or small. 3/10 of a liter. How much do I have? I'm going to have to add both of those, right? To figure out how much I have. So do drawings, do whatever you got to do to help you. So now, since now that I know it's adding, it just becomes another one of those problems, okay? This one I'm going to do with the alternate method, just to remind you guys that there is another way. If the magic box doesn't work for you, this way is working for some people, okay? And that is to just make some equivalent fractions and look for the same denominator, okay? So I can go 10, 20, 30, 40, 3, 6, 9, 12, right? You're just gonna skip count across the top, skip count across the bottom. 5, 10, 15, 20. I already see I see some common, so I'm not gonna go any farther than that. 2, 4, 6, 8. Remember, you're skip counting. It's the same thing we've been doing with multiples. You are not going 2, 4, 8, 16. You're not going times 2 each time. You're just skip counting. So I see 6/20 and 8/20 because they both have 20 on the bottom. So anything smaller, like a multiple that, okay, look, 3/10 and 4/10. So that's going to be better, right? I like to have the smallest one I can. So since I know I'm adding, all I have to do is 3/10 plus 4/10. I could do 6/20 plus 8/20. That's not wrong. But on a test, it's usually best to have the simplest form you can. So I do 3/10 plus 4/10. Didn't leave myself room to write it, but 7/10. Okay, so I go back to my questions here. 7/10 of a liter, so that would be D on this one, right? One thing you notice I'm not doing, I'm not saying, let's see, what are the answers? I think it's probably that, like, on a one like this, I'm just going to go ahead and work it out first, and then see if my answer matches, and then make sure that it actually makes sense. Because, more than likely, if I start just kind of looking and trying to guess beforehand on a question like that, it may not be helpful. Oh, that was actually number 3. I'm sorry. So I did 1, 2, and 3. So here's 4. Which fraction is shown by the fraction tiles? Okay, so this is going to be subtraction because of the way we have done it. Adding, we would keep going like 4/5, and then we would have a half over here. But when they're stacked like this, that's going to be subtraction. So I know it's going to be 4/5 take away 1/2. Okay. All right. So again, this is our subtraction. It's the same exact thing that we've been doing. 4/5 minus 1/2. So I already know I could probably get rid of D. Could cross that out. For the rest of them, I'll say 4/5 minus 1/2. So I need to work it out at this point. Okay. Get my magic box going. Times something equals something. Times something equals something. Find my multiples of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Let's see. And find my multiples of 5. The denominators, right? 10, 15. So I found 10. And it just happens that that's 5 times 2. That does not always work, okay? You can't always do the denominator times the denominator, but sometimes it does. I'm going to draw a quick 1 around these because I'm trying to keep moving here. 2 times 5 is 10. This has to be 5/5. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. This has to be 2 halves, so that, you know, so I'm multiplying by some form of 1, not changing the value of the fraction, really. Just changing what it looks like. 4 times 2 is 8. Now, this is subtraction. Each time I do a problem on this test, I need to say, am I adding or subtracting? This is subtraction. So I've always got my denominator stays the same. And 5, 6, 7, 8, right? If you want to ever count forward like that, you just go 5, 6, 7, 8. Like bump the first number. If the numbers are close together, it makes sense to count forward like that. If you're not sure what the answer is, okay? So I get 4/5 minus 1/2 equals 3/10. So now I look back, 4/5 minus 1/2 is, oh, there it is, A. I'm gonna double check. B, no. I mean, B couldn't have been right anyway, equals 3/3, but still, it's good to double check and work it out. 4/5 minus 1, okay. So it has to be A on that one. Again, the answer doesn't matter, A, B, C, D, none of that matters because it's gonna be different on the real test. But what matters is, you know, can you solve these? Okay, then we get to number 5, and this is another one where we just have to figure out, are we adding or subtracting? Jan and Zofia are painting fences. Jan paints 2/3 of a fence. Zofia paints 5/6 of a fence. How much more? Ooh, how much more? What do? Subtract. That's right. How much more means subtract. How much more of a fence does Zofia paint than Jan? So that's going to be subtraction. You're going to have to figure out like which is bigger. And they're kind of telling you. They're telling you that Zofia painted more. So I know that Zofia's is going to be first, 5/6, take away 2/3. Okay, this is number 5, 5/6, take away 2/3. Again, you can do this however you want at this point, whatever you're used to doing. I'm going to show this other method again because I have found that for some people, this really is working better. So I'm kind of just alternating which one I show you. Either one will work. Magic box works. This works, okay? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. You're still doing multiples. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Down here, we got it easy. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Oh, yeah, I see 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so I already see 1. I see 12, right? I've got 10 twelfths and 8 twelfths. That's the smallest one, right? What? Oh, you're right. I found another one, 5/6 and 4/6. So we're looking for those common denominators, right? We want the bottom number to match. So I'm going to do 5/6 minus 4/6 equals 1/6. Okay. So that should be it. I go back and let's see. A says 1/6 of a fence. That should be it, right? So again, you can't necessarily tell these by looking. You need to work them out. Again, some of you may be good enough with fractions that you feel like you can do it without working it out. But I would highly recommend on a test that you go ahead and work it out. Unless you're under a time constraint, you know, why not? Why not work it out? And you're not. In our class, you can take your time and, you know, work them out. Let's look at number 6. Jaden uses 3 3/4 cups of whole wheat flour and 5 1/8 cups of white flour to make bread. How many cups of flour does Jaden use in all? So what am I going to do? I'm going to add, right? Let's see, 3 3/4. Yeah, so I'm not going to do this one because I've done a bunch of these already. But for number 6, add, see what you get. We're going to go over it in class. But that should just be a basic adding one. It shouldn't have any regrouping because I want to be sure I do the regrouping ones, but that one doesn't seem to. Number 7, Fran has 2 5/6 pounds of modeling clay. She uses 1 5/8 pound of the clay to make a bowl. How much clay does she have left? How much does she have left over? So this is where, you know, if you start with something and you use some of it and you have some left over, then that's subtraction, right? You took some away. So how much does she have left over? That means I need to subtract. So she started with 2 5/6. Oh, that last one was, sorry, the last one was mixed numbers. I could have done that, but let's just keep going. Because it's the same thing. We just put these numbers on the outside of the magic box. And I don't want this video to go too long. And I know it's going to be subtraction, right? So I just write my number like always, up and down. Still have some people that are just writing the fractions. Write the whole problem. It doesn't take that much longer. And it will save you from running into trouble, okay? magic box, I can do it any way that I'm used to doing it. I'm going to go back to my times something equals something. 6 and 8. This is where if you do 6 times 8, you're going to get 48 for the denominator. And that's really not the best, okay? Let's take a look. We've got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. And then down here we got 8, 16, 24. Oh, there we go. 24. And that's one of those times when multiplying the bottom, multiplying the two denominators together will not give you the best answer, okay? Sorry, this is 7 because I moved to the next. Okay, so we know it's subtraction. I'm just double checking. Yeah, how much does she have left? Okay, I'm gonna make these look kind of like ones, except faster. 8 times 3 has to be 3/3. Has to be the same on top and bottom here. 6 times 4 is 24. 5 times 4. Okay, so I'm gonna always start when I subtract or add. I start with the smallest thing, right? When you were younger, that would always be the ones, and then the tens, and then the hundreds. But now this is smaller than ones. So we're going to start with whatever's the smallest thing. In this case, it's our fractions. They're smaller than 1, right? They're smaller. There would really be a decimal point here. If this were a decimal, there'd be a decimal here between the whole numbers and the fractions. But we don't use decimals with fractions. Okay, so we don't subtract the denominators. That stays the same. Because we're subtracting 20 of these minus 15 of that same thing. So we can't subtract the bottom or add the bottom. All right, 20 minus 15, I get 5/24. I'm going to come over here and not forget 2 whole pizzas minus 1 equals 1. Okay, so I got 1 and 5/24 pounds. Let's take a look at our possible answers here. Number 7. There it is, 1 and 5/24 pounds. So again, even though these are all, a lot of these are, there's a lot of words, the problems are pretty much all just exactly what we've been practicing. All right. Sorry, this is getting long. You can always fast forward, I guess, if you feel like you know some of this. All right, let's look at number 8. What is the difference? When I'm asked what the difference is, subtract, right? That's why we do that song. Because if you didn't know what that word means, you wouldn't know what to do here. 3 and 3/8, take away 2 and 3/4. All right, let's do it. I just want to think about if this is, yeah, I think this is one of our, where they get a little bit trickier. Let's find out. 3 and 3/8 minus 2 and 3/4. Okay, I'll do my magic box. This time I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do the times something equals something, because when we get into these harder ones, this does get a little bit more, it's nice to have this format. Okay, 4, 8, 12, starting over here, 8, 16, I'm already done. I've got 8. 8 is my new denominator. You might have already known that. If you've been doing a lot of fractions, you might have just known that it's 8, okay? Same thing here. Again, this is a nice test because all of this is the same thing. It's just adding or subtracting. But it's all doing the same basic thing, right? 4 times 2 is 8. That has to be 2 halves. 3 times 2 is 6. This has to always be the same on the top and bottom. We've talked about why. 8 times 1, 3 times 1. Now, okay, so now we have a problem. We're going to start by subtracting our smallest thing. 3/8 minus 6/8. I cannot do that. It's not 3. It is not 3. It's not 3/8, okay? If you have 3 of something, you cannot take away 6 of something. Not if it's like real objects. We're not into negative numbers and all this stuff. So just, if I have 3 apples and you say, hey, can I have 6 apples? No, I don't have 6 apples. Oh, but maybe I could get some more apples over here. Okay, so maybe I can get a hold of those apples. But right now, I'm not allowed to subtract this until I fix it, okay? And this is where we have to regroup. This is where it does get a little trickier. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to take one of these whole pizzas or whatever, whatever whole thing you're talking about. I'm going to bring it over here, okay? And again, this is going to be another one whole, right? Since I'm dealing with eighths, since I'm dealing with pizza that's cut into 8 equal slices, I'm going to make this 8/8. So that one over here, it could equal 7/7. It could equal 5/5. In this case, we need it to equal 8/8. 8/8. It doesn't matter, okay? We're just doing what will help us. Now, I already had 3/8. So don't do 8/8 minus 6/8. That will not be right. First, I've got to make sure I have all my eighths. I already had 3. I brought 8 more over. Now I've got 8, 9, 10, 11 eighths. I'm going to rewrite this just to keep me, keep me from making mistakes. 11 eighths, take away 6 eighths. Okay, still going to be eighths on the bottom. Denominator's still going to be 8. I have to write to the side of this chair. And then I know 11 minus 6 is 5. So now I go over here and I've got 2, take away 2, I've got 0. If you want to write a 0 here, you can, but really the answer is just 5/8. Okay, so look at my answer sheet here. And it looks like A is 5/8 of a pound. So there we go. Would be A. I always double check the other answers and make sure that what I'm making sense. But if it says difference, you just subtract. Okay. And let's take a look at number 9. Okay, Angela walked for 7/10 of an hour yesterday and 5/8 of an hour today. For about how long did she walk in the 2 days? So in other words, you're just adding up the 2 days. So now you might have a guess at this. Like you might think of like using a number line or something like that to get you there. Like, let me show you that. So we're talking about 7/10 and 5/8, right? So if I did have a number line and I had like 0, 1, 2, and I could say, I know that 7/10, if I cut this into 10 pieces, 7/10 would be maybe like here. And then 5/8 is about half, right? So it's gonna be, I mean, I guess I don't love this method because it's one of the choices is between 1.5 and 2, and one of the choices is between 1 hour and 1.5. If it just said between 1 and 2, you'd be good, okay? But I think I'm gonna use a different strategy. So for number 9, I'm just gonna add them up. Again, it's easier to just make sure I have the right answer, okay? So let's see. I'm gonna go quick here because we've been doing this for a while. So I'm not gonna do this quite as slowly. But if I've got 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and then I have 10, 20, 30, 40. I was kind of looking for that. Wherever I saw it match up with 10, I knew I was done. Okay, 40 is my new denominator. 8 times 5 is 40. This has to be 5 on the top. 5 times 5 is 25. 10 times 4 is 40. Has to be 4 on top. 7 times 4 is 28. All right, so I'm going to do 28 plus 25. I might not know what that is. I mean, I know what 25 and 25 is. So I know that's 50. And then that's just 3 more than that, 51, 52, 53, right? So that's one way that I could think of it without having to actually go over there and add it. 53/40. And this is where we get into that other trick we've been working on. Well, what do you do when you have an improper fraction? Well, one way is just to take away one whole pizza, right? And since these are 40ths, we're just going to take away 40/40. That's a whole pizza. All right, so we still have 40 on the bottom, but now 53 minus 40, I believe we would have 13 on the top. So that means I'm good now. My fraction's good. This is the same thing we've been doing, with other kinds of problems. Fraction is good, so I don't have to take any more 1 wholes away from it. This, though, is a whole number now. So that becomes 1. I didn't have anything else. So this would be 1 and 13/40. That's kind of a wild answer. But it does show you, like, you can see, is that half? Like, what would be, this is a little bit tricky, actually. What would be half, right? Half of 40? So half, I might write over here, like, what would half look like? Well, half would look like 20/40. So that's not quite half. So I'm going to answer between 1 hour and 1.5 hours because it's not quite 1.5. Yeah. So about how long between an hour and 1.5 hours is what I would say there. But again, you see, like, this is not just like spring into your brain stuff. This is stuff that's going to take you some time in some cases to work with. I would recommend you don't just guess on any of these. I mean, you haven't seen me just guess on any of these. Okay, number 10, you don't even really have to do much. All of a sudden, they make a nice, easy one for you. To find 5, 6, and 3/8, which number is a common denominator? All right, So if I'm talking about 5/6 and 3/8, all I have to do is find my 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Okay. 8, 16, 24. These songs come in handy. 32, 40. So I see, let's see. It looks like I've got 24 is the same with both. Let's see if that is their answer there. Number 10, yeah, C is 24. Now, if we saw some other options, like if it said choose more than one answer, we could keep going. I mean, we could keep doing more 6s, we could keep doing more 8s, and we could find other common denominators, right? Okay, let's see. Number 11, Barbara mixes 2/3 cups of raisins and 4 1/4 cups of peanuts for a party snack. How many does she use in all? So what are we gonna do? We're mixing them all together like a mixture, like we talked about in science, right? This would be a mixture because you could separate the raisins from the peanuts. So we're just gonna add it because how many cups of peanuts and raisins does she use in all? We're just gonna have to add together. So number 11, 2 2/3. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Notice my whole number is big and my fraction is small. This is a nice way to keep yourself from making mistakes. Plus 4 1/4. Again, we're doing the same thing we've been doing. But if I set it up right, I've got my plus sign here so I don't later on get messed up. Times something equals something. These I know are going to be equal to 1, equivalent to 1 whole. 3 and 4, if I do my multiples, I'm going to get 12. I'm just trying to move this along a little bit. 4 times 3, 1 times 3, 3 times 4, and then 2 times 4 is 8. So I end up with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that's not bad. No problem. And then 4 plus 2 is 6. I'm done. I thought this might be one of those trickier ones, but it wasn't. So I end up with number 11, 6 and 11/12 cups. You notice like these are not problems that are just going to jump into your head like, oh, 6 and 11/12. Like where does that come from? Like you're going to have to do some calculating to figure these out. All right, so 12, 13, and 14. This is where we can get into some tricky stuff. And you just want to do the best you can. Catherine practices the flute for 1 3/8 hours on Friday and for 2 1/4 hours on Saturday. How much longer does she practice on Saturday than on Friday? Okay, no problem. You know how much more, how much less, how much greater, how much longer is going to be subtraction, right? And when I'm asked how much more, I subtract, right? So how much longer does she practice? You just need to do the big one minus the small one. And it tells you which is which, but you can also see that 2 1/4 is bigger than 1 3/8. But I have a feeling we're going to run into some issues here. I'm going to make this box long just because I think I know what's coming more than likely, right? We're going to have to do a little regrouping. Times something equals something. These are going to be equivalent to 1. If I do my 4, 8, 12, 16, I'm going to get 8, right? Not 32. Don't do 8 times 4 is 32. That's not going to help you much. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, 2 minus 3. I can't do that. And I had a feeling that was going to happen, right? I cannot do 2 minus 3, 2/8 minus 3/8. So this is where I got to come over here again, get one of these guys, bring it over, and since we're dealing with eighths, I'm going to call it 8/8, which is another way of saying 1. Add it to what I already had. I already had 2/8. Don't forget to add whatever you already had, because you already had 2/8. If you just come over and do 8/8 minus 3/8, that's not going to be right. You've got to make sure you have everything that you started with. I haven't changed any value here, right? With this magic box, that's why it's magic. Nothing, I haven't changed any of the value between these numbers that we're subtracting. I'm just playing around with things to make it easier for me to do what I need to do, which is subtract. So now I can do 10/8 minus 3/8, 7/8. Now I come over here, 1 minus 1. Once again, I got 0. Don't forget to do that though. But in this case, it wouldn't have mattered. She practices 7/8 what? 7/8 of an hour. Because it was asking how much longer does she practice, right? All right. Oh, moving on. I'm determined for you guys to get a good grade on this test. That's why I'm spending over 30 minutes doing this. Okay. Julia's thermos contains 9/10 cup of soup after a walk. She eats 1/3 cup, which best describes how much soup is left. So this one, all of a sudden, we have one that's really not that bad. If she has 9/10, so let me just kind of jot some notes. Let's say I have a cup. That's almost the whole cup, right? That's almost all of it. She has that. She eats 1/3 of a cup. All right. So if she eats about 1/3, she's going to end up around here, right? She's going to end up around 1/2 cup. That's the only answer that makes sense. Now, you could work it out. You could do 9/10 take away 1/3, but you don't actually have to on this one because the answer A, almost none, well, that can't be right. 1/2 cup, that seems right to me. About a cup, that cannot possibly be right because she didn't even start with a cup. She started with almost a cup and took away. And the 1.5, that's just way off. So I know that it has to be that one. Again, when in doubt, though, work it out. I just made up a new phrase. When in doubt, work it out. Copyright, Mr. Travis. All right, last one. And this is the one I told you about. This is a tricky one. Charlie jumped a distance of 8.5 feet. His younger brother jumped a distance of 3 5/6 feet and then jumped 2 1/4 feet. Who jumped farther? How much farther? Explain how you found your answer. So this is a tricky one. Partly just because there's a lot to think about here. But honestly, I haven't seen any adding with regrouping so far. Well, maybe this one will be. So I draw Charlie. That's Charlie. And he jumped 8.5 feet. And we were talking today, like, that seems like a lot. It's really not that much. You can jump 8.5 feet if you get a run at it. And then his younger brother, they don't tell us his name, so I'm just going to put Bro. His younger brother jumped 3 5/6 feet, which I know is less than that. I don't have to know exactly, but I know he jumped 3 5. Then he jumped 2 1/4 feet. So who jumped farther? Probably, I can kind of see it's Charlie, right? Because 3, let's just say 4, that's almost 4, plus 2, plus a little more than 2, still not even getting close to Charlie, really. So Charlie jumped farther. How much farther? Well, I don't know. Now I got to figure out some stuff, right? I'm going to have to add these together. Then I'm going to have to subtract from that. All right, I don't really have room to do that on this one, so I'm going to bring out another board here. Let's see if I can do this in a way that makes sense on the screen, kind of, maybe. All right, so first we got to add these together. 3 5/6 plus 2 1/4. Okay, again, grab the old magic box or the way of your choosing that we've talked about. 4 and 6, 6, 12, 6, 12, 18, 12, right? If I do my multiples, I'm going to find 12. You would get 24 also, but 12 is better. 12 is a lot easier to work with. 6 times 2 is 12. That has to be 2. That's 10. 4 times 3 is 12. Now you see, all your teachers that always told you need to know your math facts, they were right. So 10 and 30. Okay, so here's our only, I guess, adding with regrouping, because we get 10 plus 3, we get 13/12. Okay, 3 plus 2, 5. Okay, so, but we're not done. We got to fix that. That's not going to work. We have to have, for a mixed number, we have to have all of the whole numbers we can possibly make. And this means we can make another whole number because it's bigger on the top. That means it's bigger than 1. So I'm going to take away 1 whole from this, which in this case, since we're dealing with 12ths, is going to be 12/12. So now I have 1/12. And once I get into the regular standard form of a fraction, I'm done. But I need to add any ones that I made need to be added to the whole number. So 6 and 1/12. I'm not done though. So this equals 6 and 1/12. That's what that equals. Now they're asking me how much farther did Charlie jump. So now I got to do another problem, get another whiteboard, and we're going to do, that's why I told you this one would be hard. 8.5 take away 6 and 1/12. Okay, so that's going to get us to our final answer that we're really looking for, because you notice there's no multiple choice here. It's just like, good luck. So you got to figure this out. If you can get this one right, bravo. This is going to be a tough one. Because again, I've had to make 2 magic boxes just to get through this one problem. I've already had to regroup once. Okay, 12 is going to be my new denominator. Again, you know how to get that. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 12 times 1, 1 times 1, 2 times 6, 1 times 6. And so I'm subtracting. Okay, good. I don't have to do anything different this time. 6 twelfths minus 1 twelfth. We know we're still in twelfths. We end up with 5 twelfths. 8 minus 6, 2. So he jumped 2 and 5 12 feet farther. So that means that this distance right here, where, I could probably back that up now. This distance, let's say from here, right here, the difference between what Charlie jumped and what Bro jumped is 2 and 5 twelfths feet. That's your final answer. Unless I made a mistake, which is possible after 35 minutes solid doing this at the end of the day. So I hope that's right. If it's not, I'm sure someone will be glad to tell me. But that is your whole study guide. The test is very, very similar. So if you struggle with something, with one of those problems, get on YouTube, keep going back and looking at what I showed you, and follow along with what I did, okay? Okay? All right. Good job. Let's all get A's.